Hello, my friends, and welcome to Tangle Time Arts. I'm Nana, and today I thought since it's the beginning of a new year, I thought we'd go back to the basics and do one of the first types of projects we usually learn to do. I like to do this now and then just to go back to the beginning, and I learn something new every single time. So we'll start with step one, and we're going to take a look at the materials that we need. You'll need a black pen, either Sakura Micron 01 or an apprentice pen. You'll also need a number 2 pencil and a tortillon. Yours might look a little different from mine. And if you don't have one of these types of pens, any black pen will be fine. And you'll also need some white paper. I have an original white tile from Zentangle here. And we'll just take a moment to appreciate our time together. I'm thankful that you're here today with me, and take a look at the tools that you're using and the beautiful paper that we have. And then we're going to get started. You'll need your pencil. And so step one was our gratitude and appreciation. Step 2 is the dots. We're going to put a dot in each corner. And I would suggest you do that lightly. I'm pressing a little harder so that you can see better, especially since this is the perfect tile for beginners. Once we have our 4 dots in place, we go to the third step, which is creating our border, or it's kind of like a frame. And we do that by connecting the dots. And again, you want to do that lightly. Your lines do not have to be straight, and I'm going to make them kind of curved on purpose. So no worries if your lines are not straight. Okay, so I have 2 sort of straight ones and 2 curvy ones, but yours could look different from mine. The fourth step is to create a string, and the string is not set in stone. It's there as a guide, and you'll see why as we go along. And for this project, I'm going to use a little different string from how we usually do an introductory tile or a basic tile. So I'm going to draw a line right down the middle of our square here. I'm going to go this way. And now we have 2 rectangles, and I'm going to draw a diagonal here so that we cut that rectangle in half. And I'm going to draw another diagonal to cut that rectangle in half as well. So we have 4 parts that are roughly equal. And now I'm going to set the pencil aside and pick up a pen. I'm going to use the apprentice pen today. Black works best, but if you don't have a black pen, just use whatever you have. That's fine. And also, if you don't have the Zentangle tile, you could use computer paper or a sketchbook. All right. So the 5th step is to add the tangles. Tangles are like patterns, and there are steps for each different tangle or pattern. And our first tangle that we traditionally learn is called Crescent Moon. And I'm going to start on the left here, but you could actually choose any one of the spaces. But I'm just going to start from the left, and I'm going to put it's kind of like a little half ladybug. It's probably about this half the size of the end of my pen cap there. And then I'm going to rotate my tile a little bit so that it's comfortable for me to work on. And I'm going to add another one in the corner. And I'm going to rotate. And I'm just working in this section, this triangle here. And I'm adding these little half ladybug shapes. And I think I'm going to go down here and put one here and rotate around. And maybe we can fit one in here like that. And then I'm going to ink these in. And again, rotate as needed. And you might have more half moons than I do, or half ladybugs than I do, or you might have less. And yours might be filled in more solidly than mine or less. That's fine too. You'll develop your own style as you go. And now we're going to aura around each half ladybug shape. And to aura, we're just following along the same curve, but outside of it. And we'll do that for each one. Once you've gone all the way around, we're going to do that again. Crescent moon is one of those patterns that once you learn it, it's really easy. It'll become like a go-to tangle because you can use it in many areas. Okay, let's go around again. And now we're getting a little more tighter in these areas, and that's okay. And in this area, we're just going to kind of follow this, go over this area, and then aura above it a little bit, like that. And then we can fit in another aura there. And these areas are getting pretty tight. You can really add as many or as few as you want. And now that we've made it all the way around, we have still some space in here. And what I'm going to do is, instead of creating more auras in the ladybug, the half ladybug shape, I'm just going to go around each shape without going all the way down. So we get a cool shape like that. And then I'm going to ink that in. And of course, there are different variations of how you can do your auras around the crescent moons. This is just one of the ways. And I think in here I will do the same, and I will ink this in. All right. So we've finished with inking in our first tangle, which was crescent moon. And now I'm going to go to the next area here, but you might choose one of these other areas. And our next tangle is called Hollibaugh. And I think what I'll do is I'll write these on the back as we go. So we did crescent moon. And now we're doing Hollibaugh. Hollibaugh is a fun one. Once you learn it, again, it'll be one of those go-to tangles. I'm just gonna start kind of in the center and draw a line. And then I'm going to aura that line. So we have kind of like a matchstick there. And then I'm going to kind of rotate my tile, and I'm going to go with, I'm going to go this way. But we have this matchstick already in the way. So what we're going to do with our line is, when we get to the matchstick, we're going to lift our pen and kind of air draw over to the other side, put our pen down, and then keep going. And then we will aura that as well. And we can make these little matchsticks different widths. They don't all have to be the same. So let's try something. Let's go off over to here. And then we're just going to do a thinner one. Can do one here. And put one in here. And yours do not have to be placed exactly like mine. You can fit them in different directions. You can have more or fewer than I have. So that's Hollibaugh, and we're going to leave that for now. And we're going to go to our third tangle, which is a fun one. It's the French word for spring, which is Printemps. Printemps. My French isn't very good, but these look like little coils or little springs, and they kind of start, and I'm going to start in the bottom here. I'm going to use this section this time. It kind of starts with, you can make a little dot, but it's like a little C shape. And then we aura around that. And we're running into this pencil line here, but the lines are just a guide. So we can go over that line and then close off our printemps. And I'd like to do something a little extra for my little springs here. I'm going to add a little weight on one of the sides. So I'm adding it to the top, but you might want to add it on the side or the bottom. But we're going to always keep them in the same area. So mine are on the top for this one, so they will always be on the top for the rest of them. All right, I'm going to add another one here. And again, if I run into another one, I'm going to lift my pen, air draw over to the other side, and come back down. And then I'm going to add a little weight to this one too. But I think I prefer to call it adding a little love instead of adding some weight. We'll just add a little love. And then we just keep continuing on till we fill the space with the printemps. And again, your little springs don't all have to be the same size. Some can be bigger or smaller. All right, I'll go back in and add a little love. I'm gonna make this one kind of bigger. Air draw over like that. There we go. And then we have just a little bit of space left for a couple more. I'm gonna go back in and add a little love. And I think we can fit in a tiny one here. And we'll leave that like that. So you might have more in there than I do or fewer if you made them really large. And that's perfectly fine. And then for this last section that I have here, I thought we'd do something a little different. I'm actually going to add additional lines in here just with my pen like that. So now I've got 1, 2, 3 triangles within the triangle shape. And then I am going to add these lines here. And then I'm going to cut these triangles in half. And this one kind of goes up into there. We've kind of lost our guideline there, but that's fine. And I'm going to ink over this guideline here. Like that. And then we're going to aura this zigzag line here. Because we are doing Knightsbridge. And Knightsbridge is one of my favorites as well. So many uses for that. And it's getting pretty thin down here, so I think I'm just going to finish that off like that. Maybe I can fit one more in. And in order to fill this in, this requires a little bit more concentration. I'm just going to start with this one up in the upper left corner, and I'm going to ink that one in. And it's tempting just to try to think, okay, I'll skip this one and go to this one. But sometimes it's easy to get a little lost that way. So what we do is we look for a corner that touches this original one. So in this case, this corner is touching this corner. So I'm going to move on to this one and ink that in. And then I'm looking for another corner that touches this one. So we have a corner over here. Another corner, corners that are touching, and we call those kissing corners. My next one is I'm gonna go up here, but you might want to go down here. And I have one coming down here. All right, so we've got our first 2 rows done. I'm going to move down to this row, and I'm going to go off of this one here, and I'm looking for another kissing corner, a touching corner there. And one of the reasons I really enjoy Knightsbridge is because it has a lot of drama with the larger filled in black areas and contrasting with the white areas. I'm looking for more corners. Other corner. It does take a little while to ink them in, but it's definitely worth it. And our little spaces are getting smaller and smaller as we get towards the point. So it goes a lot quicker. And for these areas where it's touching the printemps, I'm leaving a little bit of white space in there if I can, just so that we can see the shape of the printemps better. Really pay attention in these smaller areas. And then we can also fill in, these are going to be like triangles in these areas here. All right, I think that about does it for that. And then I'm going to go back to this area with the Hollibaugh because we have a lot of space here. And there's different ways you can fill that in or shade that, and we will be shading it. But I think what I'd like to do today is add a little feature that is kind of like Enzeppel or Crazy Enzeppel. And that's simply in this space here. We are going to follow along one of the lines, and when you get close to the corner, you're going to kind of curve off, touch the other side, and come back around. And we're putting like an orb or a perf, or they actually look like little pebbles to me in these spaces. And this is optional. You don't have to add these if you don't want to. Um, but it's just something that I kind of feel like doing today. And put one in here. I'm gonna rotate my tile a little bit so that so that it's easier for me to work. And for this one, I'm gonna go outside of the pencil line a little bit, like that. All right, because those pencil lines are guidelines. Okay, cool. Now you can choose if you would like, you can ink in these areas. Again, that's optional. But to demonstrate, I'm going to fill them in. And before I forget, I'm going to put the name of the Knightsbridge tangle on the back. There we go. All right, now we can put the cap on our pens, and then we can pick up our pencil again, and we're going to do some shading, which I love shading. So, so take your number 2 pencil, and we're going to start with the crescent moon, and we're just going to shade along these areas. They're kind of like valleys. And I'm kind of using the side of my pencil. And when it comes to shading, you'll definitely find your own style. There's different ways you can shade. So you'll definitely find your own style when it comes to that. And you're going to have to make a decision as far as if you'd like to go along here with a pen. I'm just going to actually use pencil, but you could go along there with a pen if you like that darker. Okay, so when you have a nice layer of graphite on there, we can move to the next area. And again, I'm going to run some graphite along here as well. And I generally suggest people to start lighter because you can always add more, but you can't really take it away. Put a little graphite there and run some up there. All right. So now we're moving on to our Hollibaugh area. And anywhere you have one running under another one, like this area, this particular little matchstick goes under this one, we can put some graphite. You can do both sides, but generally I try to choose one side and I try to stay on the same side. So I see another one here that does that. Okay. And then I've got some running the other way, so I'm going to rotate my tile a little bit. that. Okay. And I'm going to run some graphite outside of that area. And then we have these little pebbles, these um, little stones. So I'm going to add some graphite to that as well. And again, I'm just choosing one side. So I'm kind of working um, in the lower half of the pebble, but a little bit to the right. And so I'll be consistent for each little pebble. Okay, I think I have all of those areas. All right, and then we have our, let's do our Knightsbridge. So I'm going to run graphite along each of these rows, but just on one side. And so since I'm kind of, you're either going to have to choose the left or the right. And I'm just going to, for this one, run it along the left. If you want to run it along the right, that's totally fine. But I'm just going to be consistent for each one. You don't really need to put any over the areas that are black, that are inked in. All right. And then we are at our very last tangle, which is the Printemps. And I'm going to add graphite to any area where, do you see how this larger one is kind of behind these two up front here? So I'm going to put a little graphite there. So any place you have one going behind another one, you would add a little graphite. Okay. And then I am going to add some to the outside here. Don't forget to rotate your tile. So shading is step 6, by the way. Just add a little out here to be consistent. All right. I think that'll about do it. And then I'm going to add some right along here to kind of define the Printemps area from the Knightsbridge area. Like that. I'm going to set my pencil aside for now and pick up my tortillon. Yours might look a little different from mine, and if you don't have one of these, you can always use a Q-tip, or you can just use your finger too. Don't forget to wash your hands though. All right, we'll start with our crescent moon area. And I'm just really rubbing the tortillon back and forth along the graphite just to blend it in. And this is one of my favorite things to do. It's just fun. I like the sound of of the tortillon on the paper when we're blending. And you'll notice that even though I did not add graphite with the pencil here, I could do that with the tortillon because it is loaded with graphite itself. So as you use your tortillon more, you'll be able to do that as well. And then I'm going to go around the edge here. All right, now we are at our second area, and I'm going to go in where there's the overlap on the Hollibaugh areas. So I'm going to do that first. All right. And then for each of the little pebbles, I am going to soften that graphite. And I'm bringing it around a little more so that it's almost enclosed. All right, did we get all of them? Yeah, it looks like it. Don't they look like little stones, little pebbles? I love it. All right, so for the Knightsbridge, it's simply those straight lines of graphite that we are blending out. It goes very, very quickly. And I wish I could see how your tiles look because I can just tell you're doing an amazing job. Okay, and then we come over to the Printemps and we want to get those areas where we had the little spring behind the other ones. And then once we do that, we want to go around that entire area. And then we want to go back up to get the top here. And I think that about does it for our shading. At this point, if you find that your shading was a little bit light, you can go back in again with your pencil and add more graphite to it, and then go back in with the tortillon and blend it again. Mine, I was working a little darker so that you could see on the camera on the video here. So mine is, I'm going to leave it as is. And at this point, step 7, we want to put our initials. You want to put your chop on there. And this is always fun as well, trying to decide where to put your initials. Some people like to put it in a corner. I like to try to work mine into the actual piece if I can. And sometimes you need to rotate your tile to see where it would be best to put it in. I'm a little bit undecided here, but I feel like I'm going to tuck it in right here. And I can put an N and an H right in there. So I've kind of incorporated mine into my piece. And then we want to turn it over and sign. So I'm going to put Nana on there, and this is going to be for January 7, 2024. Wow. All right. And I think I'm going to make a note here that it's a basic tile. And we already filled in our tangles. And our very last step is to take a good look at what you've done. We've all done an amazing job. I can't hold this up in front of me, but I would suggest that you pick it up, hold it at arm's length, and rotate it, and really, really admire your work. We learned 4 tangles plus putting in the little pebbles. We learned how to shade. We really did a lot today. You should be proud of yourself. I've had a lot of fun with you today. Um, I hope this gets you started with Zentangle or pursuing your art. If you're a beginner, and if you've been an artist your entire life, I hope this inspires you to look at things a little differently. Thank you for an amazing time. And if this was helpful to you, please subscribe. I'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining me. Love you guys. Bye.